What's up guys, this is Trevor. First video on this channel, but I thought it might be helpful to some of you, so I whipped it together. This is in relation to something I found on Temu that pops up every time I pull up that app. And this one knows that I'm a woodworker, knows the stuff that I'm looking for. I'm building a dining room table right now for our own home, and I wanted a way to mortise and tenon together these different parts of the dining table, the legs, the top, all these kind of things, but I don't have the budget to go and buy a $1,300 Domino, right? This thing pops up on Temu all the time though, and it is a little jig that's supposed to do exactly what a Domino does at a 90-degree angle. Let me give that caveat. You don't have all the cool like tilts and stuff that a Domino can do, but this one does some pretty cool stuff. And yet there are some issues. And so I want to spell those out so that you understand if this is actually a buy and if it's worthy of 35 to 40 bucks, which is what I got it for on Temu. And if it fits your router, all those kind of things. We're gonna jump into all those elements. I'll give you the good, the bad, the ugly. And yeah, let's go. All right, so first things first, what exactly does this thing do? It is not a full-fledged Domino because as you can see, it does not angle at all. So you get a direct in 90-degree cut and that's it. You've got a couple of adjustments on here. You can adjust how far in the jig depresses. It's got some nice springs on there that kind of help that tolerance and stuff like that, but basically there's a stop you can screw in and that makes it quit moving in at the certain point that you want. There's also some adjustments on the side here you can see. These adjustments help you adjust up and down, which basically decides how deep the cut goes. Once the bit's in there, I'll show you in a second, that kind of decides how far down it goes. And then you also have these adjustments on the top that will roll down to kind of help you set that up and down adjustment as well. You obviously don't want to go up and down. That's why these screws are zipped in pretty tight so they don't move around. And then there's the side-to-side adjustment. So these little guys down here, you'll notice I have some wing nuts on there. I'll explain that here in a second when it comes to the flaws of this situation. And then of course you've got the handle grip, helps you hold on to it. And then the surface that it mounts on, you'll notice I put something on here. This is some like stick-on adhesive sandpaper. It's really slick, so that's one of my problems with this that I'll also point out in a second. But that's basically how the jig works. Designed for 65 millimeter routers. I've got a little Win router that is exactly that 65 millimeters. It fits in like a glove. So you just literally put it inside of this sleeve like that. It's got like a you know, kind of cheapy plastic screw down, but it keeps it solid. It's not going anywhere. One thing I do like about the jig is that there's not a lot of play. I mean, there's a slight amount of vertical play if I just kind of wiggle it. Side to side, there's just not a lot of like slack or flipping. Just a tiny bit of wiggle room, but it's not a lot to mess with a typical tenon situation, mortar situation. So I found it kind of worked pretty well. I mean, it was machined well, at least. Side to side, you can kind of see these bearings are in here. It actually does roll pretty smooth and nice. That's kind of cool on these little bars here. There's two of them inside of there, two mounts. Let me flip it that way so the camera can see it. And it rolls pretty nice. Like there's no sticking, it moves pretty quick. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, so make sure you have a good trim router that fits this for sure. But other than that, the jig seems to be machined pretty well. I mentioned this was really slick. This is just like a painted steel or aluminum or something going on here. It's pretty thick, heavy duty, but the back of it is very slick. When I sat it down on pieces, it would immediately start to slide when I tried to center it. You'll notice it has this little pointer piece. That's to line it up with the line when you're actually like mortising something. So that's good. It's not as great as like something you'd see on Festool or something, but it works to line it up. It gets you generally close, and if your tenons are a little bit shorter, then you should be able to move it around to get it lined up nicely. But yeah, that wasn't too bad. Again, moves nice, it compresses nice. You know, that's kind of, you could see the bit coming in and out of there. That's how it's going to kind of go into the wood. Yeah, let's talk about some of the weaknesses, because this thing's got a few. So one of the biggest weaknesses I ran into is that this distance from here to here is not very big. And that's a problem, because you only get about that amount of distance of mortise when you're actually plunging this. Now, some of you might say, well, I'll just get a larger bit. Well, I did. I got a larger bit and pushed it through and started running into a lot of vibration. These things did not cut clean when I got any larger than this. This bit has, I think, a 2-inch cutting distance on it. It's just a 1/4 inch bit, spiral, upcut, I think, downcut, not really sure, does the job. And it was enough to get a short tenon in there, maybe 3/4 inch on each side, maybe closer to an inch, probably 3/4 inch. So total, just 1.5 inch tenon. That's not a lot of space. Some of you that are thinking about dominoes can do, you know, full on 2-inch tenons on each side if you want to, or something with the XLs. So it's not a lot of space, and I think that's a big weakness of this one, because it just doesn't have a lot of room to plunge. You can pull back this, the base, and kind of, you know, slide it out a little bit so that you've got more space to play. But again, you've only got that much plunge space. So you can see I pulled it back and it's not even coming through now over top of this space where it's going to cut, where it sits up against that mount. So that's a big bummer. You kind of need all the space you can get in order to plunge. Yeah, I think you could try a longer bit, maybe a thicker bit. You know, this router comes only equipped with a 1/4 inch collet. If you had something that, a hand router that does a 1/2 inch, maybe that would help, or a thicker bit or something like that. But you definitely want to make sure it has at least a 2-inch cutting capacity to get like an 1.5 inch tenon. If it's not a 2-inch cutting capacity, you're not going to get very far on this puppy. There's just not enough distance right there. Again, you can go bigger. I bought one that was 3 inches, but there was a whole lot of vibration going on. It botched a couple of cuts pretty rough, and had to go back and make new ones. And I ended up just siding with the smaller one because it was more reliable and seemed to just cut very smooth. Another big shortfall I ran into on this are these stops. So I started to use it without adding anything in here. You can see there's some wing nuts that I've added onto there on each side, but I didn't have those. It was just the bolt that was sitting in there. And as I started to use this and move, these bolts started backing out and moving by themselves, which made my mortises get wider and wider with time, which is not cool. So I had to eventually find a way to fasten these down and keep them from moving, so that I had a, you know, a mortise that was like the same every time I did it. Sure, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. Gluing it obviously would be permanent, or get something like this nut situation. Do watch out though, because this is pretty close to the edge of that, and I had to add some washers on this side just to get it to tighten at the angle so that it didn't block or come over this surface, because this mounting surface right here, this is what hits your wood. That's how it keeps it square and 90 degrees. So you don't want anything coming above that, because it'll mess up with your square. So I ran into that issue too. But get something on there that'll help you fasten it, and that will keep this side to side from getting wider and wider, or narrower and narrower as you go. Another shortfall of this one, the handle. So when I actually bought this when I bought this unit and put it together, the handle, the screw actually stuck out beyond that recessed amount. It was not flush. It's flush now. I had to basically drill it out and let that sink in, countersink in there a little bit more, so that it would be flush with the surface, because I didn't want this sticking out and causing the bottom here to not sit flat. So I had to drill that out and machine it. So just be aware, that's going to be something you're going to have to play with as well. Other than that, it actually surprisingly works. After a couple of trial and error situations with, you know, the stops and the handle and even getting the router bit set up right in the right distance, I finally got it going. I definitely had to take it easy. It's not moving by itself like a domino does, right? You have to kind of drill straight in, and you can't go directly to the side, because it's gonna push the bits in your router to its max capacity. You kind of have to treat this like a drill and take it really slow. I'll kind of show you that in a couple of shots that I did doing a correct one. Yeah, all I could say is it works. It actually brings you a nice, even tenon that you can, mortise, gosh, I'm gonna switch those out in my head a million times, that you can then go and cut your own tenons for to fit. You know, I'm working with maple, so I'm just cutting little offcuts of maple to stick in there. It fits really nice and it does the job. Again, it doesn't get in too deep, so if you're looking for something to really secure heavy pieces, you might need to double up. All right, last weakness of this one that I'll share. When I look at it from this angle, you can see that I have the depth stops basically set all the way to the bottom. I cannot go any further than that. If I do, it's gonna start to, like, basically I'd have to take a screw out and then it would start to wiggle. And I don't want it to do that. And there's no other screws in there to kind of balance this. So there's a big weakness in that it will not go any deeper than this. The deepest I can get is right where it's set right there with this 1/4 inch bit. I can go up higher and closer to the surface of the wood with the cut, and that would be not that bad. But that does create a little bit of an issue when you're attempting to get like in the center of some thick stock. Now I'm doing an 1.5 inch top on my table. I'll show you that here in a little bit. And it's, I mean, it's still probably only a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch down from that tabletop. So you're not gonna be able to get this like an inch deep into material or an 1.5 inches deep into material. This is limited in how deep it will go. And so what you might find yourself is doing 2 shallow mortises kind of towards the top and then flipping the board and doing it on the opposite side. So you have like doubles going in, heavier stuff. I did that for the table legs. I put 2 in on each side just to support the weight of the table legs. But again, that's to me a big limitation of this one is it's not gonna go super deep. So I mentioned this before, but just kind of wanted to show you, again, it's not going crazy deep on these tenons. I've got that pushed all the way in right there. I'll leave my finger there so you can kind of see. And that's as deep as you're going right there. So the big question, would I buy this again if I had a choice to make on it? The answer is yeah. It was a headache, I'm not gonna lie. You know, machining in the screw that was not flush, figuring out how to get these stops working properly so they didn't come out. I didn't mention this, but I lost one of the pieces because it was vibrating so bad it fell off and don't know where it went. Can't find it in my shop. I don't know if you guys are like me, you lose a screw and it's never coming back. But other than that, it actually works and saved me a buku of money. Buying this for 35 bucks on Temu versus the ridiculous, oh my gosh, $1,300, $1,400. The new 18-volt version is coming out. It's gonna have batteries and stuff you gotta buy with it for Festool, which is amazing. I mean, it's a cool tool and it does a whole lot more than this can do. I get that, but 95% of what I would use it for is gonna be these 90-degree angle plunge situations, and this will do the job. With a little bit of modification, it'll do the job for a fraction, a small fraction of the cost. So when you see this guy, this weird, ugly gold greenish thing on Temu, check it out. If you got a little hand palm router that's 65 millimeters and can fit inside of this guy, it's probably worth the plunge, intended. But yeah, check it out. It's surprisingly, it did the job. It got done. Some table legs that I did, the top, which is gonna be mortised together just like a domino would at a simple 90-degree angle. So I'd say it's probably worth it for that. Please listen to my cautions. Don't go out and buy a stupid long bit to get really deep tenons. It's not worth it. This unit is not designed to do that. Shallow tenons is best for this, shallow mortises rather, and not a huge depth either, but again, you could just flip it. You could do 2 to kind of help with rigidity, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm gonna use it in the future for future builds. I would still love to have a domino, not gonna lie, but I probably will not be having that budget for a long time since I'm just a hobbyist. So let me know what you think in the comments if you like it. Shoot a subscribe on my channel. Love to do some more of these for you guys as I just learn little cheap ways to do woodworking in projects. All right, y'all, thanks for watching and stay tuned for some more stuff.